Season 10, Episode 8 of Alone. I feel like this was probably the weakest episode of the season. I don't know if anybody else noticed, but we hit maybe a little over halfway through the episode, and then it was just like pure filler. The editing team was just doing as much as they possibly could to stretch a 60-minute episode into a 90-minute episode. And, even knowing that there was going to be a tap out happening, I was really losing focus to stay engaged in the show because there was just nothing going on. And, I'd much rather see the tap out in the middle of the episode and just carry on from there, or show us more of what people are doing. Like poor Melanie, what did she get? 2 minutes of screen time this week, and a lot of it was just fast forwarding her actual survival stuff, like just completely ignoring that she's actually getting food. Like it was just very weird to me. And overall I'd say probably the weakest episode so far, but we did get a tap out and we are down to our final four at the end of the episode. So I think that kind of makes us really starting to make that push to the end of the season. I believe that there's going to be 11 episodes this season. So, 9, 10, 11, that is it. So 4 people left, 3 episodes, basically a tap out every episode. And I guess that is how they're going to line these things up for the rest of the season. All right. Enough pointless rambling. Let's get into the actual episode. We will start with our tap out, Taz. At the start of the episode, we see him saying that he's got about 5 days stored, and that was around day 35, and I think he tapped out around day 40, so he was correct. He had about 5 days of food left before that was it for him. We did see him catch 2 more fish and kill a marten while he was eating lunch. I thought earlier in the season it said that marten were protected, but absolutely no mention of that when Taz kills one. But apparently that is because you can't trap the martens. You can kill them, you can shoot them, but you cannot trap them. So I wish that there would have been a little more clarity on that in the episode. In that 30 minutes of dead air, maybe you could have taken 30 seconds of that to explain that for the viewers who are actually out here paying attention to what's happening in the show, because it's very bizarre when you have one contestant say that they're not allowed to kill an animal and then another contestant go and kill that same animal. So the clarity there is not allowed to trap martens. You are allowed to shoot them with your bow and arrow. We see Taz build a guitar. I guess that was more important than seeing Melanie gather who knows how many pounds worth of food for herself. But yeah, we'd much rather see that guitar get built and Taz sing a little song. Kind of forgot that Taz had a boat. We see him go out in the lake. I thought when he was heading out to the lake that seemed like a great idea. Gives him access to deeper water. He can just drop his hook down into the water and just do a little jigging. I thought he was going to have good success, but he struck out. And then we got into that, like I said, the 30 minutes of dead air. And after that, Taz is tapped out. So down 52 pounds in 40 days. That is a significant number, over a pound a day being lost. And ultimately, I think that the thing that highlights Taz's journey is bad luck. Not all of the things I'm going to list can be exclusively placed on luck, but he got food stolen from him twice, I believe, by what we presume to be that eventual marten that he killed this episode. The food spoiling, the maggots getting into all his food, the lost gill net. I believe he also destroyed another gill net. And that's kind of what he's going to be remembered for on the show. And I think that's unfortunate because he didn't do that bad. He was out there procuring food, just not for himself. It was for the other wildlife in the region and for the bugs and insects in the region. I think it would have been a better strategy to just eat that food yourself instead of giving it to the marten and the maggots. But yeah, that's it. Taz has tapped out, and we're down to the final four of Mikey, Alan, Melanie, and Wyatt. We might as well start off with Mikey. Not a ton to say here. We did see him catch a few field mice. He said he was trapping them during the night. Basically had a string hooked up to a little dead weight trap, and whenever he'd hear the mice underneath the trap, he'd just pull the string and kill them. Ended up killing 4, and he keeps calling them rats. And I love that these are field mice caption that they've now thrown up on the screen twice for Mikey. Probably the best caption of the season. We also saw him grinding up some dried meat and bones to eventually turn into some pemmican. I don't know if that's going to pay off for him or not, but seemed like Mikey is interested in turning some of his berries into some fruit leather and some of that extra meat and bones into pemmican. So if he ever does successfully make either of those items, could help extend him a little bit deeper into winter, because we're getting to the point where you're going to essentially lose access to especially the berries, and whatever you got stored up before winter is what you have for the rest of the season. Let's move on to Alan. He's got a mouse in his shelter as well. Later in the episode we see him we don't see it, but he kills a mouse in the night with his bare hands. And that's an interesting experience to go through as a person. Killing a mouse is one thing in a trap, but to get it with your bare hands is a little different, and not something that everyone can do. I've worked on farms or farm adjacent for most of my life. Mice have been a part of that, and I never really thought anything of killing a mouse with your hands, as long as you got like a glove on, because you don't want to get bit. But didn't really dawn on me that was something that a lot of people out there just not comfortable doing. But as we now know, Alan is comfortable doing that. He's got a new lure. He's back to fishing. Kind of struck out at the fishing, but while he was fishing, a grouse lands behind him, and he is able to eventually kill it. We did get hit by the classic alone cut to commercial right before the bow shot. They must have a patent on that technology. The most predictable commercial cuts out of any show in existence. But as long as you've pre-recorded, you can skip through those commercials alone. You can go ahead and do all of those cliffhanger cuts you want, because when I've got the remote control in my hand, they mean nothing to me, editors. Nothing. Sorry, a little bit of a tangent there. But apparently, I think that was Alan's first grouse of the season. So that could be, the start of a change for him. He's been really hyper-focused on the fishing. And as we kind of switch into winter here, this could be the time to look into the forest and into the hunting, into the snaring, to see what you can do. I think Alan's been pretty good so far in kind of just following what the land wants him to do and what the land is offering up for him. And it was offering up fish, and maybe now it's starting to offer up grouse and other wildlife. Melanie, I was starting to feel bad for her. She should be getting more screen time. This is top 4, and we briefly get her building her little fire shelter and a little montage of her gathering, and that was kind of it for the episode. And I'm thinking, like, we saw Wyatt sitting in the woods gathering berries for longer than Melanie, and Melanie has this like huge spread, and it's just kind of glossed over. It's kind of just swept under the rug, like, oh, she's not killing things, she's not interesting, she's not going to be on the screen. And I think that is a mistake, because this show should be more than just killing animals. This is a survival show. What was our big knock on Cade this season? He came on this show thinking it was a hunting show. That is not what Alone is. This is a survival show. And whether you like that or not, survival is the name of the game. Gaining the extra weight is part of the game. Gathering fruits and berries and whatever else you can from the land is part of the game. But the production team just doesn't seem to think that that's worth the same amount of screen time as what we get from other competitors. They'll show Taz, unsuccessfully going fishing, but that won't show Melanie successfully going gathering. Just feels, I don't know, just kind of weird to me. So yeah, she is pretty much going all in on the gathering. Like I said before, she just hasn't had any success at the fishing, hasn't had any success hunting, but she's having success gathering, so that's what she's focusing on. And she's pulling in a decent amount of gathered calories, and I'm very interested to see how far she can push it this season. She's already top 4, being completely written off, in my opinion, but yet 40 days in, she's still there. 6 other people have gone home. Melanie, not one of them. And I'm very excited to see where her journey ends up. Lastly, we've got Wyatt. So we're basically at the point with Wyatt that we're waiting for the wound on his arm to become a problem. That is basically the point of his story that we're at. We've all seen the preview over and over and over of him looked like pulling another chunk out of his arm. We see him at the start of when he finally showed up this episode, squeezing pus and blood out of that wound. And he's got to be like 2 weeks into having that wound now. And if it's still shooting out pus and blood, that's probably not a good sign. If he had done a good job, and I mean, before it looked like it was healing up pretty nicely, and I would say it looks worse now. In the preview for next week, it looks even worse. Yeah, we're kind of just in a holding pattern until we get to that moment where we see whether Wyatt is going to persevere from the injury, or if that is going to be his eventual reason to tap out. I feel like he has to have the most food saved up, unless Melanie has like 100 pounds of gathered material that the production team has just not bothered to show us, then Wyatt has to have more food than everybody else right now. He's just caught so much more fish that we were shown than the other competitors that, this could be the thing that takes him out, because he seems like he's got the food to at least contend for the win this season. We did learn that he's lost 44 pounds, which is pretty significant, but I think that is around the same amount that Alan has lost. And I don't know if we've been shown what Mikey's lost, but he has to be in that range too, because he went a long time without getting much food at all. We did see Wyatt gathering some berries, doing one last gather sort of before the snow sets in, but that's kind of it for this week. I don't know how everybody else feels about this week, but 3 episodes left, 4 competitors left. That should leave us a tap out every week moving forward. And I mean, I don't know who's going to win. You know, I was kind of down on Mikey, and then all of a sudden he's starting to show more skills that we weren't really shown earlier on. Like, you know, he's planning on making pemmican. He's planning on making fruit leather. And at the start of the season, we were just kind of sold as, hey, Mikey's a carpenter who likes being outdoors. And you know, that kind of contestant usually doesn't do very well. Yet here we are, top 4, and we're starting to see that maybe he has more skill than we were let on. Alan, I think he's got the skills, but from what we've seen, I don't know if he has enough food to really push for the win here this season. But if he can just kind of get through this transition period where he shifts from fishing into hunting and maybe back to fishing once the lake is frozen, I think he'll have a good shot at winning. Melanie, we just don't know. She's the wild card. So much gathering. Once the snow hits, is that gathering just going to run out for her? Does she have stores? We just don't know, because we are not being shown what she's doing. And lastly, Wyatt, like I said, wound on his arm, that could be his Achilles heel, because he probably has more food stored up than the other 3 competitors combined at this point. But very excited to get to the end of this season. 3 episodes left. And as always, everybody, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you later.